And I'm more interested in learning than I am in teaching. And that doesn't make sense to a lot of people who are preparing to be teachers or think about teaching, because to frame it around learning suggests there's a shift from the agency of the teacher as the primary vehicle to the student.
Do I need a first course where there's no interference with learning to draw, basics in a basic way, and then after that I can come to a second level drawing class where you can lay on all this other stuff? Or from the very beginning, in even the most rudimentary learning of the medium, are you already insinuating into the design of this curriculum this other set of concerns? I don't have to know anything about the basics independent of this second concern to start learning this other set of things?
Yeah. No, one can enter with the concerns.
And that is your plan most of the time?
All of the time.
All the time.
All the time. So we start with, let's say, social issues. Or let's say we're grounding the course within a social space, right? We all live in a social space. We all come with a set of concerns. We all come with a set of experiences. We come to the studio and then return to wherever we were before that. What we experience outside of the studio is content for art making. Is content for engagement through art. So this is a shift where we think of so if we take a step back to notions of curriculum, a very basic question in curriculum design, curriculum theory, curriculum development, I should say, is what is worth knowing, right? What content do we want students to learn? What is worth knowing? We might then look through the progression of curriculum theory, and then folks, about 30, 40 years ago, start making a shift and start saying, what is worthwhile, what matters? And what happens is there's a movement away from a more modernist notion of art as material-based to art as a reflection and engagement within the world. Not that it hadn't been that way before, but that the world becomes an art-making medium and a context that can be not only reflected and depicted, but can also be used as one of the materials within art-making practice, and that art practice can have some sort of engaged and intentional effect within that. So, the kind of drawing class that you're mentioning or describing is not uncommon. These kinds of courses happen quite often, but their titles don't always reflect that, and many art schools are making some shifts. I mentioned to a colleague a number of years ago. I said, we really need to change the names of some of these courses. Like we should have, Art with Larry, Art 505, Art with Larry, and then Art 507, Art with Steve, and they would have a sense of what that course was about. It's not a materials specific course, although it could be. But when we move the focus to issues, ideas, concerns, engagements, problems, ideas, that is an easier entry point for the kinds of pedagogy that we're talking about, that lend themselves to the sensibilities of disruptive practices, of social consciousness, of transformative learning.
Supposed to be offering this every day, preschool, high school, college. Cultural and global awareness, creativity, entrepreneurship. We're supposed to be helping our students become and believe they can be entrepreneurs. Now, when I was in school, it was the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. And if I could sew a pillowcase and home ec, which I couldn't, but my friend did, dress out for PE, you were doing pretty well. Things have changed. Schools need to be offering the opportunity to practice this and develop it. You don't teach it. You have to live it and do it without fear of failure. And I decided, you know what? I don't know if I'm really preparing my students to be ready for this when they graduate. Well,
I think we move beyond this by really focusing on what equity means. And we fail to focus on that. Equity is not giving everybody the exact same thing. Equity is hearing somebody's voice about what they need and providing them with that. I've been part, actually, of a conversation where people are saying, you know, there's a technology divide. Let's give all the kids iPods. Let's give them all iPads. And that's great to give all the kids technology, but that's not equity. Equity is creating the opportunity for the young people in front of you to share with you what their ideas are about what it is that they need. It's kind of like you have a bunch of starving children in front of you, and you know that all those children in front of you are allergic to food. They're allergic to different types of food. If you give one kid peanuts, it's going to be terrible. You might lose them. If you give one kid bananas, you might lose them. And then you say, okay, fine, we have all this food and fruit here that we can give these students, right? And then you say, all right, but I want to be equitable. So I have to give all the kids peanuts, because that'll make it equitable. And if you give all the kids peanuts, what happens? Somebody who's deathly allergic will die. You've not created the opportunity where you can ask them what it is that they want. You don't even know their allergies, because you're so concerned with guilt and words and ideas that you can't get the opportunity to hear their voice. So I am advocating for moving beyond student-centered pedagogy and even transformative and powerful ideas like culturally relevant pedagogy, because those words have been used and misused and abused and co-opted and distorted. I'm arguing for reality pedagogy. And so what is reality pedagogy? Reality pedagogy is teaching and learning based on the reality of the student's experience. See, while student-centered pedagogy from Dewey and Piaget and culturally relevant pedagogy from Gloria Ladson Billings has such power and potential, it makes no sense if the teaching is based on what our perspectives is of what the culture is. I can't be culturally relevant if I'm teaching you based on what my perception is of your culture. I can't be student-centered if I say, this is what I think the student wants and needs, so let me give them that. And what happens is our guilt and our experiences and our words make us think that we know what they need.
Is to just realize what they are the expert in. I will just put an image up on the board and I'll tell them to turn and tell their partner what they see, think, and wonder. And then they'll have lots of questions. And I think the questions is something that I'm still trying to figure out, and NYU is giving me the tools to understand how to answer these questions in an age-appropriate way. But I think the most important thing is that they are having these questions, because if they're doing that here in the art room, then hopefully they can do that outside of the art room too. You can learn so much from just giving a child a simple question and then seeing what they visually create. And I think I learned, but also they learn from each other, and then this beautiful community culture happens because they're appreciating each other's stories.
I've been working with first graders and third graders. So you know what I did a few weeks ago? I talked to third graders about epidemiology, which is what you do, right? Showed them this map. My intention wasn't to talk specifically about epidemiology. My intention was to talk about how the visual representation of ideas, or how the visual representation of data, the visual representation of information might allow us access to ways of knowing and understanding that we wouldn't have without those visual representations. But I didn't tell them this yet. I said, here's a map. What do you see? Oh, it's a map. Okay. And then what else do you see? Well, I see a bunch of dots. What do you think those dots are? Well, maybe those are the people. That's where they live. Or maybe that's where something happened. Why are there more dots here, not there? I don't know. And they said, oh, wait, there's some X's. What do you think those X's are? And they had all these ideas. Well, you don't see the X's here, the X's. The X's are here. Oh, okay, that's helpful. Thanks. So what's going on? Tell me about the relationship between the X's and the dots. Oh, well, most of the dots are in the middle, and most of them are around that green dot in the center. I said, oh, you know what? That's what Jon Snow thought too. Guess what he figured out? That's where the people were getting sick. That's where the people were dying, because they were drinking the water. And it was because he was able to visually represent the data, he could get to this observation. They thought that was pretty cool. Then I told them, so now here's a new word, epidemiology. Bunch of 8-, 9-year-olds saying epidemiology. It's great. But they started to understand how visual representation of information allows access to ideas in different ways. And I said, if you like this map, what about this one? Other people thought that map was interesting too. How many different ways could you represent data visually using a map? Other people thought Jon Snow's idea was really cool. They came up, oh, and then as soon as I showed this, oh, that's Google Maps. 8 and 9-year-olds know about Google Maps? Yeah. So now, how does Google Maps play into how we might teach in elementary schools about space, about visual representation? Just taking an object and doing something to it and doing something else to it.